Right guys, welcome back to another video. Now, as promised on the previous one about monofilament nets, we'll keep on the subject of netting. This one is called long netting, and as you know, it's old Poachers Country Tales by John Humphreys. And as I promised on the previous video, I would give you a poaching tale from his book. Temperature's good today. Still a little bit windy, but it's nice. And the temperature, this is August remember, is dropping a little bit. So hence I have my fleece on. Clear the throat. Where's the glasses? Need the glasses. Right. Let's enjoy this poacher's tale from John Humphreys. Long netting, it's called. The best sort of night for this work was dark and blustery with a little light rain. Not heavy and continuous as then, the rabbits would not feed or venture far from their burrows. The net would be fixed at one end along a woodside or a hedge at a time of night when the rabbits were feeding and unsuspicious. While out in the field and far from homes, a second man would walk backwards, unrolling the net as he went until a great length of woodside was covered, or field. Two companions would follow behind him, sticking in the ground at 15-yard intervals a hazel peg, 2.5 feet in length, and fixing the top edge of cord of the net to it. So they're fixing the net. The net mesh was made to exact dimensions, just large enough for a rabbit travelling at speed to force its head through, but difficult for it to remove it. As many as 6 nets would be set, each one 100 yards in length, which will indicate the scale of such an operation. These operations were not just a one-man job, it was multiple men, because they were looking for dozens of rabbits. If the gang had no dog, the other men in the operation called for at least 3 for it to be a successful operation, and would make a wide sweep round the field and beat it back to the waiting nets. The rabbits would be lying out feeding, and their first instinct would be to squat and trust to luck that they were not observed. But they feel insecure so far from their holes, and as the beaters approached, they would break cover and make a headlong dash for safety, crashing way into the nets and getting their heads firmly caught in the meshes. The man at the net, meanwhile, feels the bump as the rabbit hits, slips quickly from his hiding spot and removes it from the net and kills it deftly with a single blow, and then he returns swiftly to his position. Best of all, and most effective, is the long netters. Dog, when it had been trained and has a natural instinct for the work. So they used the dogs. They were the best. There will always be a few rabbits which stay in the form and do not run straight away. The dog will start the rabbit, stunning and chasing it for a distance, but always stopping within a few yards of the net and not blunder into it. Such a dog is like gold dust to a netting gang. So the dog knew, it had to know its stuff. If it travelled straight on to the net, he was caught as well. So yeah, these dogs are well trained. Those without a dog could resort to other methods of starting the rabbits. The problem on some nights was not so much to drive them as to make them move at all. Without a watcher to start them on their headlong dash for safety, the poacher needed to call on his ingenuity to find an acceptable sound second best. Sometimes he would catch a rabbit and take it to the furthest point on the beat and hold it firmly in his hands so that it squealed and squealed in alarm. This was often enough to start the other rabbits moving and fleeing. Alternatively, but far more risky, he would strike a match from time to time. This would also have the same desired effect, but was considered highly dangerous, as they would be seen, and as any night watcher would see the sparks of the light in a second and hasten spot. Now, here's the bailiffs and the keepers' version of preventing long netting. These poachers, these rabbit poachers. The keeper would sometimes set alarm guns, but these were not popular on the fields where cattle were grazing or near the coverts where pheasants might be roosting. So you've obviously seen these mechanical guns in the fields where they blast off a bang. That's mostly to scare away birds from crops and whatever, but the keepers used them to scare away rabbits and whatever, so that it prevented the poachers coming out. Where pheasants might be roosting, the observant keeper could tell if it was being long netted simply by the sudden decrease in the number of rabbits in particular fields and by telltale signs on the grass. He might release a number of tame rabbits, coloured black or piebald, in vulnerable fields. The sudden and unexplained absence would tell him immediately that the long netters had paid him a nightly visit. The best poacher in the world could not distinguish between a common rabbit and a coloured one on a dark night. How cunning, eh? It was rare for even the most careful gang to leave without forgetting at least one hazel peg. Now there you are, leaving evidence. Remember what I told you about looking for nets and whatever? You have to walk the ground. So the keepers walked the ground, and if they seen a hazel peg, they knew they were about. It was applicable only to those grass fields which lay along the countryside and where the landowner owned them. They used to buy a draft of rough hill bullocks of Welsh Scottish strain. They should be fed late, and the hay laid out in a long line by the woodside. They would spend the best part of the night eating the hay and lie down nearby to sleep. On the arrival of the netting gang later on in the night, the bullocks might think that there was more food for them on the way, and up they got and rushed up madly to the gang, giving it no peace but failure allowed. So they used the cattle as well, because the cattle, if they see a human or whatever, they think they're going to get fed, so the cattle would rush these poachers. So that was another trick. The men might try to drive them off, but the general commotion would be more than enough to scare any rabbits which had not lost its sense of hearing. Lovely. Also, therefore, at about 11 o'clock at night, the keeper would go out with a brace of fast terriers and thoroughly beat the ground, which he thought the poachers would tackle. The rabbits would be driven safely into their holes, and even if the netters arrived shortly after, they would not be then ventured so far out again into the field. The rabbits would be frightened, you see, after the terriers beat them and chased them into their holes. They'd stay there all night. After a few nights of this regular disturbance, the keeper would find those rabbits would be fed more often by the day and would not go far out on the fields into the way the netters could be successfully thwarted. So the rabbits knew. The rabbits knew to keep in their burrows at night for a few days and whatever after those terriers chased them. So that was another good successful way of combating the poachers. That was a good one. Right, guys, hope you enjoyed that little story from John Humphreys. And what better than to read it out in the countryside? And it's getting a little bit hotter. The wind's still there, but it's not cold wind. So yeah, I'll say bye bye for now. We'll catch you up in another poacher story soon. Bye bye.